Boom. Okay, we made it. Daniel, we're here. I think we're
Awesome.
live. We should be live now.
Yes.
Um, so let me kick it off here and get us started, and then I'm pretty much going to listen to you talk this whole time, Daniel. To be honest with you.
Good.
So for the folks who are already live, this is Daniel Motley with me. My name's Jason Bruckner, and we're both part of Faithlife, our Logos. And our goal today is just get you more familiar with all the libraries, every single book in every single library that launched with L10. We're going to do that in like 30 minutes, probably. So that was an exaggeration. We're going to actually fly through some of the new resources that are added to L10. And I have, like I said, with me Daniel Motley, who your official title, Daniel, is
Senior Manager of Content Products.
Senior Manager of Content Products. And so I did tell him before we got rolling that I was going to ask him to introduce himself and roll through his responsibilities, but he said I'd like for Jason to do that. So I'm going to begin with what I think Daniel does every day, and then he's pretty much going to circle back around and correct me. And
There we
so
go.
here's what I think you do, Daniel. And this is why I think it's important that you're on the call with me today.
Mhm.
I think that you basically look for through every single book that we have in our library, which is like 180,000, 160,000. What is it?
It's a lot. It's a big number for
It's
sure.
a big number through every single book that we have in our library at logos.com. And you decide what books are in what packages across the board. Up until L10, and some things changed after that. So how accurate is that? Is that pretty good or no?
That's pretty good, and I think that may oversell me just a teensy bit. So one of the things that is absolutely true is like I've been working for the past few months to kind of put together our libraries. So that's I've been the kind of the project lead on the English side, building the library portion of the base packages. So anytime that there's or anything that we needed for resources for a library, I was working to make sure that we'd include those in the various levels and the various libraries on the English side. That being said, there have been a lot of folks working behind the scenes to create libraries for not only English but also for our various international, and foreign languages, which has been really exciting to work with them to get all this stuff going. And so now, after the launch of Logos, my primary goal and responsibility is content acquisition. So, working with our publishing partners to make sure we bring on more content to delight more users in the future. So, but for today, I am super jazzed to be here talking about Logos 10 libraries. That's all I've been thinking about for several months, and so I cannot wait to just divulge all of the things that I'm most excited about for the libraries for sure.
Yeah, I think it was for a whole month. I wasn't allowed to talk to you because you were just in this like space where you just were going through all of the books, and I'm exaggerating a bit, but going through our resources and seeing what would be best for which package for Logos 10. And so I'm glad that I get to talk to you and that other people on staff get to talk to you. So cool. I'm glad, and I hope that those who are tuning in and have a love for books, I hope that they find benefit from this conversation. I hope that they can wrap their minds a little bit more around what resources are in which package. And something else that we said right before we went live, Daniel, is that the features are not really your cup of tea.
They're my cup of tea for sure. I am just not the expert, I would say, for
That's
sure.
fair.
Yeah.
So we do have some other live discussions queued up where we'll be digging into different features. So features for pastors or features for students or professors or the church themes, church history themes. We just talked through that recently with Mark Barnes. And so we have some other live conversations coming up. But today we're focused on the books, on the resources. And so where do you think it would be most beneficial to start today, Daniel?
Yeah, I think that, I think most people, when they first get started looking at Logos, one of the first things they see is like our standard lineup of packages. So I'm happy to begin there. I think that's just the easiest place to begin. So I've got in front of me, and I think the link, you have a link, Jason, I believe that you're dropping in
Yep.
at some point, a link to our slash compare page. And so scrolling down, there's standard on the left side there. If you want to give that a click, we can take a peek at standard, and
You
we will
bet.
get to counseling here in a hot minute. Um, But that being said, so we've been thinking about Logos 10 for several months now, and we're very excited finally to see these come to fruition. And so, obviously, people have been asking, people have been really interested to dive through, see what we've added, and so one of the things that we from a high level wanted to do for the Logos packages is make sure that we prioritize, obviously, our church history type resources. And so, and we'll get to what those in particular are, but the church history type resources were certainly higher on our list. And we also work with some publishers that are relatively new, I think, to base packages. There's going to be some new Moody content that we haven't had before, some Zondervan content that we haven't had before, and some additional Baker content that we haven't had before that I'm super jazzed that we've onboarded. So that's high level stuff. And so if we want to get into the nitty gritty, the granular, starting with starter, as one does, we have 4 different highlighted features, and for each one that we have, we've identified 4 highlighted, either one resource or highlighted collection that we think that you might be interested in just right off the bat. That way you can kind of get an idea of the flavor of the package. And so for starter, we've included IVP Bible background commentary, which has been in it before, but it's very much a highly requested resource. It's very much used by a lot of folks. And whenever it's missing from a package or a collection, I hear about it almost immediately. So making sure that we have that represented at a very low level. The Wycliffe Bible Encyclopedia, it's a new resource we've added to L10. It's new to L10. It's from Moody. It's just a very comprehensive encyclopedia from them, and I'm glad that we were able to onboard it. I think it's going to be a new resource to crack open if you're looking for various Bible or theological definitions. And then the How to Read series, just to call that out real fast. You've seen the How to Read series. It's Tremper Longman's series of short commentaries on Old Testament biblical books. This time around, we've added an additional one. I believe it was Daniel, if my memory serves me correctly. So it's a bit of an add from last time we've had these in for Logos 9 base packages. So that's the starter highlighted features. When we move up to bronze, we're adding the Thompson Chain Reference Library in its totality. So that is cool to see. That's been a requested resource to have in the libraries for a long time. We were able to license it relatively recently in the past few years, and now we're able to include it in our base packages. So very jazzed to see that. And then also another Moody resource that we have is the Theological Word Book. That's been one that people have requested to see, and so we now have it for bronze. If you have something along the lines of like the Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament from Erdman's, or the Theological Lexicon of the Old Testament from Hendrickson, this falls in the same kind of vein, just doing word studies in the Old Testament from a theological point. Very cool, very good resource to use in Old Testament study. And then the Reading the Bible Today, this is a commentary set that I wasn't aware of until relatively recently this past year, but it's got a number of good professors and known people who are doing commentaries from a devotional practical level. And so I think they're going to be excited about that. You should go look for it in your Logos library and make sure to incorporate it. I think that you're going to be surprised. Moving up from there, Logos 10 Silver, we've got the Christ-centered Exposition Commentary Series. Goodness gracious, have I heard all about this. Very excited to see. So, it's cool for me because my master's degree was from Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. And so there's a number of folks, from, Southern or SBC backgrounds who, have written for this series. So it's neat to see and have that included in silver. It's, if you aren't familiar with that series for Brahman and Holman, a number of different pastors and pastor scholars writing about, insights on the Old New Testament, but not from a lexical, deeply biblical theological perspective, but more from the practical pastoral devotional side. Very helpful. And then also, about the ISBE, so I won't cover that, but the Spectrum Multiview book series. So if you're familiar with Zondervan's Counterpoint series, in which they bring on a number of folks to talk about an issue. So, women's ordination or justification, sanctification, or the Canaanite genocide, they'll bring on folks and just, they'll give a different perspective from one author. This is the same type of thing from IVP US, covering a host of different a host of different questions or topics. Really neat. Should crack it open if you're interested in a subject and want to get a quick background of someone's take on a subject without necessarily having to go through the rigmarole of tracking down the primary or resources from that viewpoint's perspective. It's a quick, concise, what does everyone think about this topic quickly. And then the Carta Biblical Background Collection. So if you remember from L9, we added Carta resources, including like Sacred Bridge and a lot of their atlases. This is an expansion upon that. These are a lot of academic resources. So like Hebrew Etymological Dictionary, and then a couple of other different missing titles that we didn't have from L9 as well. So excited to see that. And if you have L10, you'll be getting access. L10 Silver, you'll be getting access to those. So moving up to L10 Gold, which is like where full feature set comes in. Here we have the Osborne New Testament commentary. So if you're familiar with Grant Osborne, he passed away a few years ago. Lovely man. He worked with Lexham Press to develop a number of different New Testament commentaries. And so these represent the bulk of those here. And so very excited to see those here. We used to have them in some upper level packages, brought them down because they were very much requested. And we want to make sure that these get into the hands of more people. Just make sure that more people get their eyeballs on them, because it's a lot of good content from Grant. And then also Wiley Blackwell Bible commentaries. So these are interesting because they're like the ACCS, and that they cover a swath of church history and quote quote Christians from church history past. However, it's not like the usual suspects like Augustine or Calvin or whomever. It is like really, really niche folks, like niche people in church history who have really good, interesting insights, but like people you would never ever like think about. So I think I cracked open one volume just to kind of review for myself, and like they quoted like a Bulgarian monk from like 742, and that it was a really amazing quote. And I was like, oh man, as a person who loves rabbit trails like that, and just just these little things that you can go off into, I was really impressed by that. So I highly commend that to you. We're still currently working on a number of those for production right now. But we should have production completed on those here pretty soon. So I can't wait for those to get in your hands. And then also the Christian tradition, I'll touch on that. Yaroslav Pelikan, I don't think I'm butchering his name, was a Lutheran, converted to Eastern Orthodoxy, but he was a church historian. And so he wrote a 5-volume work about the whole of church history. Very comprehensive, beloved across like the various denominational, flavors. So anyone and everyone who works within church history makes reference to this 5-volume set, because it's talking about the history of doctrine alongside of the history of the church. And so that's a really not a niche subject, but it's more of like a one that doesn't have a good set of volumes that cover all of that. So I commend those to you. We've tagged it up to be able to work with some of our features, and so with new church history features. So yeah, a very neat resource for sure. And then moving up to Platinum. Platinum's
Hey, Daniel, before we
yes.
jump to Platinum, question on Carta. So we did have someone mention, if we hop back mentally back to Silver, someone said that the Carta collection, especially Biblical Background collection, is amazing. And someone asked why it's so awesome. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Carta does this like they're known for atlases. They had these really nice atlases that they've come up with over the years, and they're really invested in like biblical geography and like helping one to understand like what the area of the Bible looks like. So I come from a tradition that doesn't always value the people, places, and things of the Bible. Now, I say that not saying that we don't care about Jesus and all of the people in the Bible, but in terms of like the places and people and things that were like there on the ground, like as they existed in time, like it just all seems kind of nebulous for the average person. But like these types of resources that Carter's produced really help to get folks like on the ground, like boots on the ground, so to speak, and be able to help you understand like, oh, this is where Bethlehem is related in relation to Jerusalem. I didn't know this. Or the Qumran community, for instance. Like, do you know where the Qumran community is located? You know it's in Israel. Where is it at? You don't know this. But these kind of help you figure out like the location of like why, okay, these guys are working within a context. They're not simply just folks, creating the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? Like they actually have buildings and there's cisterns and they're writing and they're doing stuff. Like, the Carta's gone to great lengths. Like the folks at Carta have gone to great lengths to help folks understand like the lived in geography of the Bible. And that's why I think that their resources are great. And really helpful for what we have in these libraries. Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving up to platinum. Platinum's where we tell folks, like, if you're doing seminary education, like, platinum should be your first stop for sure, because there we include some a little more lexically central commentaries and resources. So we're talking about like Pillar, New Testament commentary. We're talking about some New American commentary. We're also talking about the Exegetical Guide to the Greek New Testament, which is from Broadman and Holman. That's a new edition, L10. So Exegetical Guide to the Greek New Testament is, if you're familiar with Baylor's Greek handbooks, it's in a similar vein. It's doing lexical work in the Greek New Testament and not merely just doing commentary on the text devoid of the original languages. So if you have a background in original languages, like, those are going to be excellent supplementary volumes to help you as you walk through a book of scripture. And then also ACCS, the Ancient Christian Commentary on Scripture, as I kind of mentioned earlier. It's a whole Bible. It's like a Bible commentary, but instead of just writing about the text qua the text or text as the text, it's writing about, or it's pulling together a bunch of quotations from church fathers about the text that you're studying. So it's Augustine on, Esther, not Daniel Motley on Esther if I were writing a commentary.
I would read it.
Yeah, I'll sell it to you. Yeah, for sure. And then let's see here. L10 Diamond. So when we get to Diamond Portfolio, like, what you're getting is just a whole lot of books. So if you're a person who's just like, I got to have all them books, like, the Diamond is where you need to go. It's a start. Because there we have a bunch of journals. So if you're needing a bunch of articles, if you want articles about everything, if theological, biblical studies related, like, you should certainly check out Diamond, see if it meets your needs. For highlighted books, though, Preacher's Commentary series from Zondervan, which we've had for the first time in packages, is there. It's a help. It's, even though it's a preacher type commentary, it's still it's more for the working pastor doing sermons and creating sermons for their folks. And then the New Studies in Biblical Theology, that has blossomed up to a 53 volume set. So we included that in the Diamond. That one is the D.A. Carson edited series about biblical studies in biblical theology. So mission in Jonah, and the Old Testament theology, like some really essential but like really more in-depth types of resources.
The silver, it's the silver series, right? Or isn't that?
The silver book series. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's how I see them. It's like the series with the silver covers. Absolutely. And then we also have NIGTC's, the New International Greek Testament Commentary series, where very well known lexical commentaries on the Greek New Testament. If you know the original languages, you're going to want those. And then the Bible Speaks Today. So the commentaries and themes. What most people don't realize is that not only is the Bible Speaks Today also like a commentary set, it's also like they do a series of volumes about particular themes. So the message of love, the message of women, the message of there's various ones in there that don't fit the commentary kind of package. And so we kind of bundle those all together, and then those are all in Diamond. And then finally, actually not finally, because we have one more level above Portfolio for Standard, but for Portfolio, even more books. So we included 13 of the completed volumes from the Evangelical Exegetical Commentary. We also included 139 volumes of the Fathers of the Church series from Catholic University of America. Those are some of the most well-touted of the Church Father translations. They have a lot of them. And so if you are interested in the Church Fathers from right after the time of the New Testament, all the way up and through the early medieval period, so right after Augustine, this is the set for you. I would suggest you dive in, especially if you're interested in theological interpretation of Scripture. You don't just have to be interested in church history. Theological interpretation of Scripture is very much a huge thing right now. It's very, very popular. And so the Church Fathers are certainly part and parcel of that movement. So for sure, check that out. And then also the Smith and Helwes Bible Commentary, very large volumes, 36 volumes. More kind of like, it's not practical or devotional commentary, certainly more of a commentary along the lines of like Pillar, except from maybe just a little different perspective. So yeah, and that's Portfolio. And then when you get to collectors, I won't spend too much time on collectors, but collectors is like if you just want it all, man, if you want it all. So we have the Urban's Ultimate Collection. So like as many Urban's resources as we had up to the point that we built the libraries, those are here. Same for Whiffenstock, same for University Press. And then we have, if you are just all about them Church Fathers, we have a 626 resource collection that's included inside the collector's edition. So all the books, not every single book we have. So I know people ask, like, is collector's edition everything you have? No. We have tons of books, but collector's edition does have a lot of books. So like the number that is pulled in here is like 8,153 resources. So that is a huge chunk of books for sure. So,
hey Daniel, there's a question on Baker commentaries. I think that maybe Baker exegetical.
Yeah,
Is Baker exegetical included in any packages?
BECnet is not included in any packages. However, we do sell them separately as a part as well. So if you have any questions about BECnet, feel free. We do have a product page on the website, and also feel free to call into our sales team, and they'll be more than happy to set you up with BECnet alongside of the L10 packages too. It's a good question.
Cool.
For sure.
And this is a great question too. I'm going to pop us up here for 1 second so we're not covered up. Alfonso asked a great question around purchasing packages and then what's available for lower packages, I guess. So does gold, for instance, include everything that was in silver or starter? How does that work with libraries?
Yeah, good question. So like what we call it stacking. That's what kind of our internal term for it. So the packages stack. Yes, packages do stack. So for instance, if you have starter, if you get silver, that includes the contents from bronze and starter, both resources and features. And it stacks all the way up. So whatever is in starter is also in bronze, which is also in silver, which is, it's kind of like a nesting, Russian T-ball, I think is what they call it. Just kind of like everything kind of stacks within itself.
That's a good way to say it.
That's my mental image of how it all works for sure. And then also alongside of that, there was something else I was going to say as well. If you purchase a base package, if you already own content, this goes not just for base packages, but for most 99.9% of collections in our library, we don't make you pay twice for the same resources that you have. So if you already own resources already, like you get what's called a dynamic discount on top of whatever discounts we give you for launch. And so just know that you don't pay twice for the same resource. If you own 5 resources that already exist in a package, when you go to the web page, we already know, as long as you're signed in on your account, like we show you like, hey, your dynamic price is actually this. Yeah. So they nest, and then dynamic pricing also applies. It's a really good question. I know it's a lot of, it can get confusing, but yeah, we nest those for folks.
We'll get something else to that, just in case folks don't know, is if we'll get into denomination packages in a second. If you add multiple packages to your library or to your cart, dynamic pricing still applies. So if you add standard from silver and then or starter from silver, getting all my words mixed up. If you add standard silver, to your cart, and then you add reformed silver to your cart, you'll see a discount because you don't want to pay twice for those resources. And so we actually apply dynamic pricing to the cart as well now. So
absolutely. In-cart dynamic pricing. Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
Okay, cool. So as far as denominational, I guess first it's good to mention that we have it. So what is base packages by denomination, Daniel?
Yeah, so a few years ago, I want to say roughly 2014, we noticed and were requested by a number of folks to offer base packages from various traditions. And so we did so. We identified a number of different ones, and over the course of the past few years, we've added a few more. So we've got, here, as you can see, we've got Anglican, Baptist, Lutheran, Messianic Jewish, Methodist Wesleyan, so on and so forth. And then we've added, like the original ones are here. We've also added over the past few years Messianic Jewish, and also any of the ones that we've had before, we've actually attempted to add additional levels on top from what we had for L9. So if for instance, in L9, I believe Methodist Wesleyan had up through, I can't remember if it was up to platinum or diamond, but regardless, we added another level, or we finished out the levels for that one. That way that we have, started through portfolio of most items on the denomination. So that's what that's for. Each one has a particular kind of philosophy behind them. So like, for instance, our reformed packages is going to have a lot of reformed resources as expected. It's going to be it's going to have more resources meant for those wanting more reformed theological resources, as opposed to maybe standard base packages that are just that are more for biblical studies, more focused on like commentaries and encyclopedias. For Baptist, for instance, that one's meant more for the pastor minister who wants more pastoral resources, evangelism resources, ministry resources, counseling, preaching and teaching, those types of resources to help them in their daily ministry. Still has Bibles, still has Bible commentaries, but certainly more from a Baptist perspective and more from a ministry perspective, as opposed to maybe more of like a purely theological or a purely biblical studies kind of event. So that's what those are about, and that's the philosophy behind those.
Cool. And academic and counseling and preaching suite, I think would be good to touch on as well. If you
Absolutely. Yeah. Academic based packages are meant for those who are in seminary or have seminary background who want to focus entirely upon like Greek and Hebrew and the languages and the original language of the text. And those have all the dictionaries and original language content and resources that one usually looks for whenever they're doing that type of study. And so those are located there. There are 4 levels within academic. The first 2 levels have an academic feature set, which is a specialized feature set containing certain L10 features and, of course, older features as well. And then also then the upper 2 have a full feature set. And then counseling is a new offering. We had someone internally graciously offered to build us some counseling packages. So we've over the past few years, we've tried to onboard more and more counseling resources. And so here, we've added a number of different counseling resources, and also our feature set for the counseling package is only focused on the counseling type features within our software. And so all 3 levels have a counseling feature set associated with them, and what all's in there is actually on this page. And for the highlighted books, we've got stuff from P&R. We've got some from, I believe, New City Press. I believe there's a few different ones that we've reached out and gotten some new content from. And then some content that we've already had. Instrument in the Redeemer's Hands. I'm looking at Counseling Essentials, Compassionate Counseling, and then also the Gospel for Disordered Lives, which I believe is that's a B&H resource from Robert Jones and Rob Green. So, yeah. And then also for standard, Christian Counselors Commentary, that's Jay Adams. That's something that we've been, is highly requested, more Jay Adams content. We've onboarded more of that content for L10. And then the Baker Encyclopedia of Psychology and Counseling, if I could talk. That's kind of like a baseline kind of reference resource to be able to like quickly and easily look up particular topics within specifically Christian psychology, Christian counseling as well. And it doesn't actually, there's various philosophies of how to do Christian counseling within the wider Christian sphere. That's just that book's more of a holistic approach. And so, no matter where you're coming from, it's going to offer definitions that I believe are helpful for anyone doing Christian counseling. And then, of course, at the very top here, we have one of our mobile ed courses, the Gospel Centered Counseling course from Elisa Patrick, one of our highly requested mobile ed courses, especially on counseling. And then also the Equip Reference Counseling Guide Collection, which is Tim Clinton. These are about seven volumes covering a wide variety of different topics within counseling, especially including counseling teens and counseling women, marriage and family counseling, all that fun stuff. And then to move on from counseling, alongside of counseling, we also have our preaching suite.
There you go. Someone literally just asked a moment ago.
Wow, man, got the psychic link going on right here. We have a few different packages for preaching suite. We've got Essential, Standard, and Premium. And so those have a feature set for the first 2 that is particular to preaching, and then the final one looks like it has the L10 full feature upgrade associated with it. So the bottom one, the nice thing about these, the ones I like the most, is that they come with some of the crossfit resources that are I think essential for kind of like preaching teaching. So like the lowest level comes with the 5-volume New Testament ESV expository commentary set, so just the New Testament. But it's the expository. So if you're doing sermons, writing sermons, and you want to get into expository insights from trusted preachers and teachers, that's a great set to go to. Of course, the CSB Study Bible is always a go-to for me personally anyway. And so lots of insights from, again, preachers and preaching teachers. And then a lot of resources for quotations or illustrations, because I know if you're like me, whenever you're doing your preaching, you kind of go all in on the Bible study. And then at the end, you're like, oh, no, I've got to land the plane with folks because they don't live in the clouds sometimes. So we got to figure out ways to bring the text back down to the level of the audience. So having those illustrations and on hand and quotations is really helpful for doing that. And that's what we provided here. For this Preaching Suite Standard, the Preacher's Homiletic Commentary, it's a classical work of homiletics Older, but also still relevant because these are still folks who were preaching to an audience day in and day out, and that's timeless. So very helpful commentary. And then again, the Thompson Chain Reference Library, which we've covered before, that's located in standard in Preaching Suite Standard. And then the Wiersbe Expository Outlines. I mean, Wiersbe's the king among preachers for outlines. So definitely take advantage of other preachers' outlines. That doesn't mean you have to like, whole cloth steal things, but certainly going to other folks and like bringing in their insights. Nothing wrong with that. I think that's great. And then finally, with the highest level for premium, the Biblical Illustrator Treasury that we brought on. That's a new resource for helping with the exposition, with outlines. And then the Preaching the Word commentary. So we have the New Testament Preaching the Word commentary from Crossway. That's very much a beloved, highly requested set that we've included in premium. And so if you've never opened those up, those are pastoral devotional type commentaries, definitely written more for the pastor as opposed to like the enlightened layperson or someone doing, in-depth lexical exegesis of a text. This is for someone who's working in the text, working to bring this text to others through their preaching and teaching ministry. So if you've never cracked it open, definitely give it a look. It's great. I highly commend it to you as well. And so that covers everything for preaching and counseling. And I do not know what time we have here, Jason. But
we will wrap up in a second here, Daniel. One question I have for you. There are a few. I'll just make sure that I mention it. There's a few technical questions in the comments here as far as upgrading and features and some of those. We will make sure that we address those either during or after our stream here and get the answers your way. But as far as libraries go, which is our focus here today, is there a place that you're aware of that we can compare the different traditions? That was a question.
Yeah, for sure. So logos.com/compare is going to be your best way to compare all the different traditions. I believe if you pull it up, we actually have a way to compare between the different ones, like what they look like. So there's an overview section, which is what I've been referencing and what you've been looking at. In the middle, at the very top, there's a compare books section that will help allow you to compare books from various traditions. And you can actually custom compare across traditions as well.
Great.
Once it loads up here. Yeah.
Alrighty. So there you go. You are able to dig in that way and check out the.
Yep. And so you can actually click up to 10 items on the custom compare. So if you click that big blue button that says custom compare underneath, yep. And then when you click that, it'll give you like all these options to like to review. So if you want to review like what's the difference between Methodist Wesleyan bronze and Orthodox silver and Baptist portfolio, like you can do that kind of in-depth comparison. It'll let you know what is in a thing and what's not in a thing and where it is. Great.
Thank you. Absolutely. I wasn't aware of that. So that's extremely helpful. So
today we learn.
Yeah. So that's available at logos.com/compare.
Yep.
And I think we've got a few questions. We'll follow up and make sure that we get answered in the comments. But Daniel, we talked libraries, we talked books, and I really appreciate your time. I hope it was helpful for those tuning in. So do you have any parting words or favorite resource or anything that stand out noteworthy?
I really hope, for sure. I really hope that you all are blessed by these libraries. I know that a lot of folks internally have been spending a lot of time making sure that we're curating like what we consider to be the best for you all. So obviously we know that, we don't always live up to our hopes for the best of being what we can, but we certainly do care about what goes into these things. Certainly hope you're blessed by them and looking forward to seeing how you all use these in your ministries moving forward for the foreseeable future. So bless you all and thank you all for hanging out with us while you listen to me talk about libraries for a little bit.
All right. Thank you so much. Once again, thanks for your time and anybody who tuned in and checked this out. Appreciate you being here. Keep watching for more upcoming interviews on Logos 10. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.